Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations with Jack. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And before we get started, I'd like to take just a minute to thank our sponsors. We've got the OmniFlix Media Network, who is helping us put this on. And Sisla, thank you very much for your time today. If you'd like to learn more about OmniFlix, please go check out their website. They have a full-service content management system designed for video folks. So please go check that out. As well as the Citizen Cosmos folks. Citizen Cosmos produces a wide variety of great content around the Cosmos space. So I would encourage you to go check them out. Well, today we have Jazear Brooks on, who is the CEO and founder of Sifchain, which just launched the first public sale on a Cosmos DEX, which is extremely exciting. And it was really funny because I didn't even know you guys were doing that. And I was like, I wonder who's going to be the first person to do that. And I tweeted that out. And then like less than 12 hours later, it was like, oh, Sifchain. So anyway, Jazear and I have known each other actually for quite a while. We used to work together when I was at AIB and he was working on Peggy. Which we kind of both work on in a weird way at this point. So Jazear, do you want to take a quick minute to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. First off, thanks for having me. I really like OmniFlix and I've checked out some episodes of this show, so it's cool to actually be on the show. I worked for quite a few things. I got into like blockchain in eras, maybe 2010, I thought about it, 2013, did some trading. And between 2017 and now I did quite a few projects, one of which was actually with Jack, like you said, doing a lot of the work for Peggy. I believe like June actually started that work, but we kind of picked up some of the pieces to like productionize it, or at least get it to maybe like a solid MVP state, I would say. So yeah, I think you and I have been thinking about cross-chain Ethereum for like a couple of years now.
Yeah. June is a name that I have not heard in quite a while. And for those that don't know, June was a high school student at the time over in Korea who got hooked up with the Cosmos project and is a major contributor to IBC as well as Peggy. So Jazear, tell us a little bit more about Sifchain. What's the idea behind Sifchain?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. We picked the name Sifchain because I was also like really early in development on Torchain. And Sif is Thor's wife, and so there's like huge connection there. But actually, the reason that we created Sifchain had to do with just like productionizing Peggy, right? As I mentioned, you and I kind of built out this MVP with the ICF funding. But there's a question of like, how do you actually take this and like build a business around it? And then we somehow realized, alongside every other person, that like the use case for many different technologies was decentralized exchange, and so. We took some of the Peggy code we worked on, and we took some of the like logic behind some Torchain stuff we'd worked on for swapping assets, and we did a little bit more architecting, upgraded it, and and so I'd say we started around maybe August of last year, and then it took us. We were hoping to get it done in a couple of months, but ended up taking us till February of this year to release.
I think every blockchain project is about 2 months behind schedule every month.
Yeah, it is rough. I think my learnings from that, number one, we definitely could have hit our target if we had like forked Torchain, which we were originally thinking of doing, and then like productionized Peggy, like spent all of our time on that. But we ended up realizing was the use case we wanted to go after was the two-way peg model, and like figuring that out, which we'd had for Peggy, but making sure that worked with our swap logic took a little bit more effort. So there's that. And then I think, in hindsight, my current belief, which I think Cosmos is still trying to like, do a little bit better than us, but I think we're just going to be like, no dates. Like it's out when it's out. You'll find out, when you wake up. But I think Cosmos has still been announcing dates. So I'm proud. I appreciate it.
It's, yeah, I hate announcing dates, but you kind of have to do it sometimes. I much prefer the we'll ship it when we ship it thing. So one thing that you mentioned at the beginning, do you want to talk a little bit about your work with Torchain? Because I know you and JP and some of those early Thor contributors worked together as well, and sort of how that came together.
Yeah. Basically, I mean, Torchain's this sort of like anonymous diaspora of folk, right? So, no one knows the entire team. But basically, what ended up happening is like in early like 2018 or so, we just realized, hey, this is a really cool concept because some of those guys approached us. At the time, there was like mainly a concept, like some sort of groundwork. But the idea, actually, believe it or not, was to build it on Cadena. We did a lot of Cadena deep dives, and then basically a lot of people from my team, which was Swish Labs, it's like development shop that just took on random different projects. We were helping the Thorchain guys by like revamping the structure. We ended up focusing a lot on the swap logic and on some crypto economic updates, and we built out an actual MVP. And so we worked on that basically for like about a year and a half, and then we basically ended up just getting like a substantial amount of sort of like founder investment tokens for that. So there's a heavy investment from like a lot of the people who were at the Swish team on that, and myself. I have an absurd amount of Rune, and so there's being long on that as a position, but the team actually ended up working on this like BEP swap sort of prototype as like a way to kind of like actually get something live in market, because pretty much everything that we built was this like sort of expensive development studio thing that was like ready for production with like much more funding. And they were like, hey, like this is cool, but let's just build something that's like a cool demo. And we were like, okay, yeah, build a demo. We'll come out for production when needed. And actually, that demo, like they ended up being like one of the most like like quality Binance chain projects, and just kind of riding with that. So we did a lot of like me personally, a lot of like investment stuff and advising. But pretty much after I'd say the like mid 2019 era, a different team kind of like worked on the rest of that. So there's this huge, maybe 2018, 2019, a lot of like sort of setup and infrastructure that I did, really conceptually a lot, and then some engineering, and then investing and advising and so on. Like on investor relations, I mean, like chatting with other investors. And then maybe from like mid 2019 to today, actually, the other sort of parts of the diaspora kind of kicked off and like moved Thorchain to this like behemoth thing that it is now.
Yeah, I mean, that is a huge project. And I remember when you were working on BepSwap, and like, there's so many different parts of this ecosystem, and it's kind of hard to know which projects are going to end up getting adoption. And very, very cool that Thorchain has ended up seeing the success that it has. I think that early sort of exposure and work with the Binance ecosystem is one of the things that really helped catalyze that. Another project that I've had on the podcast is Kava. And they were also very early in that sort of BEP3 cross-chain world that Binance had created. Are there any other Binance projects that you guys have worked on that you see as exciting?
I think we usually don't talk too much about projects unless they're like public, because the Swish Labs model is like we're the dev team behind the dev team, so to speak. I think the ones that I'm really excited for. Pretty much everything in Binance Smart Chain, which I think is really like a cool project. I wish that there was more kind of direct connection with something like an Ethermint or CosmWasm. But I think Binance Smart Chain as a like an EVM sort of compatible project is really cool. I'm excited to see Binance Chain itself connect to IBC, and I think that a lot of the like the infrastructure for Binance has basically been set up such that Binance Chain has been set up such that like the interesting sort of logic that you can do for things outside of like the basic protocol have moved to Binance Smart Chain. I think you could probably get a lot of that back if Binance Chain were to connect to IBC, which I imagine will happen at some point. And then in Binance Smart Chain, I mean, there's too many projects, right? There's like Pancake and like, I mean, I shudder to like run through a whole list, except to say Sifchain is like very actively looking at Binance Smart Chain for some cross chain integrations.
Yeah, I mean, the bridging technology that you guys use to bridge ETH, like you should just be able to run another instance of it and bridge Binance Smart Chain, right?
Yeah, I think that's the plan. We're looking at a few different EVM things. I don't know if you've seen Andre Cronje, the Infinite sort of Wi-Fi founder, but he's been doing a lot of stuff in that space. And so I've been taking a look at the multi-swap stuff. But even before, frankly, he put that out, we were already seeing EVM compatible tools as compatible chains as like a good way to get a bunch of ecosystems bridged in a quick amount of time. So that's like Hecko and like Avex, and like they're just too many to use at this point.
Yeah, XYZ chain. This is one of the things that I'm looking at with Peggy is after sort of spending a lot of the last year working on IBC, starting to move over and work on Peggy. That's sort of bridging the next largest ecosystem in a whole ton of chains via technology like this. It's also really cool to see multiple slightly different Peggy designs proliferate. The one that I'm working on with Gravity, what you guys are working on over at Sifchain. The Secret folks have their own bridge. The Terra folks have their own bridge. So this world of multi-chain is very, very quickly upon us. And, it kind of feels like the early days of the internet. And, I think that you being a US person and having a large bag of Rune, you appreciate that it's not always the easiest to go find liquidity for some of these positions and to go even trade into some of these things as a US person. But once we have all these chains connected, that's going to become much, much easier. And especially with the evolution of fiat on-ramps and off-ramps with things like USDC, I think we're really seeing the dawn of the alternate financial system that is going to start really growing. Could not be more bullish on crypto overall right now. So I feel like we've kind of touched on a few things, but one thing that we haven't really talked about a whole ton, tell me about the token sale that you guys did. Because I remember last summer when we were talking about Peggy, I was like, you can very easily use this to bring funds over from Ethereum, put those into a community treasury and sell tokens doing that. And that's basically what you guys did with Sifchain, right? You're muted, Jazear, just FYI.
Hey, yeah, no worries. Yeah, I was just drinking a bunch of water out of this water bath, which is what this guy is for.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, so look, I would say that with the token sale, we really just kind of wanted to find a way to get some kind of funding, right, for the project. Like we done a fair amount of like private sale investing, but that doesn't really scale. It isn't really community friendly, and so yeah, we wanted to do a public sale. We ended up, you're right, when you brought up the whole US persons bit, like we have a really robust legal team. I did not expect to have like as much kind of stuff in legal as I thought, but we structured it, pretty well. I think there was just the regulatory bit, like how do you KYC everyone? How do you like organize it and communicate it clearly? Then there was the the actual structure of the sale where we were like, we knew for regulatory reasons, but also like credibility reasons, that we wanted to launch a token sale with a product. So like we had to actually get BEPS, like our beta net, which is what we're calling our like early chain live. And so we launched that at the same time. And in order to like make sure that like worked out really well, we actually sold our tokens in this like sort of forked balancer model where like you could like buy tokens from a liquidity pool that like replenished every hour for 7 days. And so we ended up getting like, really good traction, like certainly more. I think we were looking for like $3 million when we first started this. And we ended up getting like substantially more from people who were really excited for the project. So overall, yeah, I was pretty happy. I do think it represents this idea that like the Cosmos network can like release, top tier projects. And I'm excited to see other public sales. So I can get my hands on some other cool bags in the Cosmos ecosystem.
Yeah, I'm extremely excited about that as well. It's something that we've seen going on over in Ethereum and a lot of other chains for quite a while. And just starting to see it on Cosmos is really exciting because we've been building for this moment for years at this point.
Yeah, I think so as well.
So
Like, I think it'll be an amazing thing. Cosmos has like the second largest dev ecosystem, and like actual composability is coming. So yeah, it'll be really solid to see.
yeah, that's an interesting point. So with that in mind, talk a little bit about, you talked about some sort of fork balancer features and, you know, this swapping capability that you guys have with the AMM. Talk a bit more about the features of Torchain as it stands right now and what users can do over there.
So for Sifchain, basically there's pooling, right? So you can actually add tokens to a pool, and then you can swap those tokens. We allow asymmetric pooling, so you can actually have, let's say, a whole bunch of like one token and not enough of the other token. And it doesn't matter. You can asymmetrically swap, and the pool the pool logic will still be sound. So I think that's really useful. I think then obviously another one would be swapping itself. And you know, a lot of people have been using that. We've got like I think 15 million or so of TVL, which is not too bad. And we're onboarding a lot of liquidity providers. We just added a couple new tokens as well, Keep and OGN and Cocos. So you can be on the lookout for those as new things to swap. You can stake. So on the validator side, if you're running a validator, you can actually stake your ROAN. And with this sort of like system, if you don't want to stake but you do want access to the staking ecosystem or validator ecosystem rewards, you can also delegate. And then there's this cool kind of like truism for Torchain and Sifchain, which we call like deterministic pricing. It's not truly deterministic, but it does heavily like influence through market forces the price of the settlement token ROAN, which is that if there's like some amount of external assets, let's say 10 million, right? Then we'll have 3 times the value of at least the settlement token, because each of our pools are evenly weighted. So if you got $10 million of external tokens, you've got to have $10 million of ROAN on the other side of the pools. And then that means to secure the network, you would want $20 million staked and delegated. And so we've got a little like economic system going on with the staking, the swapping, the pooling, and the delegating. And those are basically the core features at this time.
Well, and obviously you guys are planning a lot more features there. What's coming next?
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of multiple phases to this, right? One is just like making sure that like we polish off the app itself, making the UI prettier and like adding new content and like just basic UI things like messaging and so on, that kind of thing. And then there's sort of like the next step for like core parts of our roadmap. So obviously IBC integration is one. We're super excited about that. So we can connect to other chains in the Cosmos ecosystem. Another is other bridges to other chains. So we've kind of got like a set of EVM chains, Binance Smart Chain, Hecko, and a couple of others that we want to connect to, as well as some non-EVM chains. I don't want to name any names on that side, but there are some pretty cool, just like basic layer 1, like Peggy from scratch for this other chain that we want to do for some popular layer 1s, and so we're really excited to get the ball rolling on that. And then we are like pretty actively in terms of the actual like next sort of crypto economic feature, heads out on this thing, margin trading, which I think is going to be super useful because in liquidity pool based dexes, you tend to have a underutilization of the liquidity. So the amount of liquidity that's needed to do swaps in these pools is like substantially lower than the amount that's like added to the pools. And so most of the liquidity is just like sitting there. But with margin trading,
this is the problem of capital efficiency in DeFi, which is sort of touches a large number of areas, and like this is one great one.
There's a lot of problems, frankly. I've seen some cool stuff with Somalia for that as well. But for us, it's just like, hey, just let people get more use of the liquidity pools. And yeah, you're right. Aside from that, pretty much any other stuff we've got in the lab is it's also around capital efficiency. Like these liquidity pools should really be getting as much yield to their providers as possible. And so that's really our goal.
Nice. Are you guys running any liquidity provider incentives right now? Because I think there's been a lot of discussion in my circles recently about LPs, and like obviously because of what I'm working on, but also, with the bull market coming back, there's a lot of projects talking about sort of traditional liquidity providers and working with kind of traditional market makers, and how that's going to change once we have more broadly available DEXs. And one of the ways that those DEXs are going to compete for liquidity is by offering those rewards. So is Sifchain offering some LP rewards right now?
Yeah, we have a standard like liquidity mining reward. So if you pool, you can just get swap fees, and that's great. But you can also get like a couple 100% now in liquidity mining for the next like 12 weeks. And we're also offering that, which I think is unusual, to validators. So if you stake or if you pool, then yeah, you can earn like a bunch of free ROAN for the next like maybe 10 weeks or so. We started at the token sale, and then it's going for 12 weeks thereafter.
Nice. So both validators and liquidity providers. That's pretty
exactly.
cool. One, that actually brings to mind kind of an interesting problem. And I know that there's not really an open answer to this or a clear way to get at it, but it's something that you guys are probably experiencing on Sifchain before a lot of other projects on the ecosystem, and just wondering how these dynamics are playing out. When you're on a proof of stake chain, you have to offer rewards to the validators to ensure that they continue to secure the network. And those same tokens that those validators are using can then also be put into liquidity pools and earn yield in other ways using DeFi. So are you guys seeing a lower staking rate because of that? Or are you still seeing a high staking rate as well as participation in these liquidity pools and other DeFi products?
I think that we are seeing a lower staking rate, but more so because we have to do more promotion around our validator ecosystem, right? I think we have a lot of really good validators who are like trying to stand things up and like just kind of play around with the network. But investing from a pure like investment perspective, it's just much easier to like say, hey, I'm going to buy these tokens so I can pool them, which I'm very accustomed to. Then I'm going to buy these tokens so I can like run my own validator, right? There's just so much more of an additional technical lift. And so I think it's on us to promote this more in the validator ecosystem. And we have a separate reward system, right? So like if you're delegating, you're supporting the validator ecosystem, but you're getting your own rewards. And right now the rewards are higher for validation and delegation than for pooling. So I think from a crypto economic perspective, you always have to make sure that your staking token has like enough rewards to have people stake independently of whatever's being pooled. And I think we have the incentives there. I just think on us, it's a promotion thing. But yeah, you're right. Like any chain in the Cosmos ecosystem is going to have to think about this problem.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how this plays out on Atom as we have the Gravity DEX coming here soon. We have seen, as the bull market has started, a slight tick down in the bonding ratio on the Cosmos Hub. And I think that, as we see IBC really begin to connect a larger number of chains, we're going to see more intense competition for that liquidity. And what has previously been the only way to earn on all of these chains, which is validation and delegation, is going to start seeing competition from some of these other forms. I think that's a nice segue into IBC. So when Sifchain IBC, and how do we make that happen?
Yeah, I mean, we're like pretty heads down on that actually. It's for us like one of the most like important sort of connections. So we've got a couple engineers, just they wake up, they work on IBC, they go to sleep. As far as like a specific date, I think for us, we are we're targeting roughly in a month for like full production, I would say. But I think I told you before this call, like we hate giving out dates. So this is like a sort of soft kind of estimate.
I also told you before the call, every blockchain is always a month out from their next big milestone. So yeah, totally understand that. But I do know some of the engineers that you have working with you. Marco, I think, is helping you guys do that migration, and a couple other folks. But yeah, that migration, having done so myself on a few complex modules, is no joke. So I think that it's going to be really exciting to see more and more chains start getting hooked up. We're going to see Akash here live on IBC, probably the third mainnet after Iris and the Cosmos Hub. So really excited to see that ecosystem grow a little bit more. All right, and this is the point in the chat where we normally do some questions. So I do see a few questions in the chat, so I'm going to go ahead and just bump to some audience questions here. Ugar Pellin asks, Jazear, what will we see in March? And what will be the next blockchain we can trade in Sifchain? I think Jazeer answered that second one, but I don't know about the first one.
Yeah, I think for the next blockchain, there are different teams working on different bridges. I think IBC, so basically the next one, depending on when IBC transfers actually work, would probably be Cosmos itself. So you can trade on like maybe Atom, and then I guess once IBC transfers it up, there's Atom, there's Akash, maybe Iris, and like any other tokens that are flowing. So that is probably the next one. If we don't get to maybe Binance Smart Chain first, we shall see. And then I think for us, March is really about just polish, right? Like IBC connectivity in March should be pretty doable, but aside from that, a lot of it is just maybe the one other bridge to one other EVM chain, and then just like honestly, a lot of what you'll see is on the promotion side. So like we're looking at like getting way more liquidity providers added, like institutionals, and starting like trading competition, so people are like incentivized to like actually use the liquidity. That's I'd say what we're focused on for March.
Trading competitions, that's an interesting one that I have not heard before, but a great idea as far as promotion. That sort of boring market structure behind the scenes stuff is some of the most critical, but also some of the hardest to kind of talk about, A, because of confidentiality, but B, because it gets boring real quick. So exciting to hear that you guys are working on that. All right, a couple other questions on here. Adam Worth asks, EIP burn coming. I know you guys are sitting on some amazing news. Partnering with Paid coming soon. Now, you don't have to talk about any specific partnerships, but do you know what he's talking about with the EIP burn coming?
I think EIP burn is like 1559.
Yeah, I've been hearing about this. I don't know what it's about really.
So the general gist is that it basically just allows you to burn, like it allows the network collectively in Ethereum to burn, some amount of tokens in Ethereum, and then reduce transaction fees accordingly. So they're basically saying like the miners don't need all this revenue. I guess we'll just give them a flat like fee, and then we'll just burn the rest of the ETH, so that we reduce the total amount of Atom in circulation. And thus eventually drive up supply. I don't really think that has much to do with any Sifchain like integration stuff, but it is exciting to see. We have found historically that like large burns are not that effective on like hitting like increasing demand in as much as like just other ways to like sink capital and like things like staking or other velocity things.
You remember when Stellar burned half of their tokens?
I don't actually. I remember hearing about it, but I don't know what that ended up doing for demand for Stellar. Yeah,
almost nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. What else? What other exchanges can be listed soon? Yeah, pretty much all this like, private stuff is just it's just a bunch of people
private
and on emails. Like,
can't talk about it yet.
Yeah, like when is this happening? I don't know. We'll figure it out.
When moon, Jazear. It's like when the moon's going to come, but we don't. Sadly, all we can do is sit here and burn tokens and hope. So that's getting us up to the 30-minute mark here. Do you have any last words for the audience here before we drop, and any exciting things coming for Sifchain?
Yeah, no, I think this is this has been really great. I'm happy that I was able to join. People asking about the Atom sort of airdrop. We have this cool drop coming to Atom and Rune holders and KYC participants for Sifchain. It's going to take us maybe another week or two to finish the module that's necessary for this drop.
Oh, that's not done yet. Oh,
no,
well, I'm
we
looking
ended up
forward to participating.
I think all of the like applications have come in. However, in order to actually receive the airdrop, you're gonna have to wait maybe a week or two when we finish this module.
Cool. Nice. Well, sounds like you got a lot of work to do, Jazear, and thank you very much for coming on this morning. I really appreciate it. And at the end of this episode, I do want to go ahead and thank our partners here, Citizen Cosmos and OmniFlix Media, for helping me produce this. I really appreciate the help, Serge and team, as well as Sisla and team. Thank you guys very much. Please go check out both of their products and both of their networks. There's a lot of great content on both of those platforms. All right. Well, thank you very much, and we'll see you next week on Conversations with Jack. Thanks for joining, Jazear.
Take care. Thanks for having me.